Hey, everybody, welcome to another edition of Small Business Saturdays. I'm Aaron Montgomery, and today we're going to tackle a pretty big question in this new AI powered world that we live in. How do we grow, right? How do we grow our business quickly using these tools without losing what makes you, you, right? So we live in a time where anyone can create content, automate systems, and really scale faster than ever. So as a small business owner, this is a great time to be alive. But the real challenge is staying real, right? Customers aren't just buying products anymore. There's the noise is too much. They're buying connection with you and your business. So today's going to be really planting the seeds for authentic growth and really then looking at how we can then leverage tools like AI to keep your humanity at the center of business as well, though. So I'm excited to do that. I've got one Mr. Keegster here. Hello, Mr. Keegan. Good to see you, buddy. And love you very much. So if you guys are ready to dive in, let's do this, as Kylene would say.
Dark gaze, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we rise above. No more feeling sad, we're fueled by love. Our small business is shining, reaching new heights. With the support of our success group, we're taking flight. The power is strong, the vision so clear. Building our dreams with no more fear. Together we're resilient, unstoppable force. With our success group.
Let's talk some business.
All right. Well, welcome into Small Business Saturday again. So we're talking about this idea of authenticity in an AI world. And for those of you that are new to Small Business Saturday, or maybe just need a little refresher, we typically try to keep in the cycle that's based on what's written here in the fundamentals of business success. And the first part of that cycle is plant, and it's generally around our mindset. And so as we get started here, and happy Saturday to you, Kylene. Thanks for tuning in as well. Appreciate you being here. Growth is important for a small business, right? Like that, I think, is probably one of the biggest things that people are working on is how do I grow my business? How do I get more customers? How do I do more, be more efficient, right? The word more shows up a lot in the small business owner world. And like I said in the intro there, growth in today's world is actually easier than ever. We've got so many tools available to us that we can do way more as a single person than we ever could in any other time in history. But that growth part's easy. But I think what's getting lost in all of this technology, AI, and whatnot is authenticity. And I think that's really rare, right? And so the goal here in the plant section is how do we grow without losing ourselves, right? And I want you guys to really start by understanding that our why is so important. And happy Saturday, Chandler. Thank you for being here. Good to see you here. And your why is what really keeps you connected to what makes you authentically you. And so I think the first part of this, the whole mindset side of this, is really understanding that our why is now more important than ever, right? And so let's get into some points here. First and foremost, I believe that AI really can amplify your business, right? Like wherever you're at on this whole conversation around what AI is, right? Good, bad, indifferent. For a small business owner, it gives us an amazingly powerful tool that allows us to really amplify everything that we're doing. And sometimes, though, that amplification, right? If you've ever, I've got a mixing board sitting in front of me and I've got tools on it that will allow us to amplify what is going into this microphone here, right? But if I turn that way the heck up, it then starts drowning out the voice, and all we get is like a squeal, right? And so intentionality is probably the first thing we need to really grasp onto is when we're using tools, when we're talking about AI, are you being intentional with it, right? Are you just putting in a couple of words, a quick request as if it is a computer, which it is, right? And then saying, do this. And then you just take that. And so it's kind of, in a sense, you're going garbage in, garbage out, right? You give it garbage, it's going to give you garbage. And then if you just share that with the world, you've now transferred your garbage somewhere else, right? And I think true success for a small business owner comes when growth and authenticity kind of grow together, right? So we can use AI, we can use automation, we can use things like that to do more. But if we don't bring our authenticity, put yourself in the middle of that, put the people, the relationships in the middle of that, then you won't have ultimate growth, right? You're always going to be held down. Right. So if we always just try to do it all on our own, we kind of go along like this. If we add AI to it, we can go like this. But if we don't put ourselves into that, it's going to bring us down. And so I think the reason why authenticity is so important is because it is so loud out there. The world we live in today and the world that we operate in as small business owners is we are in an attention economy. Can I get enough people to recognize me and to connect with me and to resonate with me that I can sustain my business? And so in an attention stealing world, right, there's all sorts of algorithms, tools, backhanded, sideways ways that we can get attention. But the reality is the most at our core as human beings, the most important thing is trust. And having people trust that you're going to show up, you're going to do what you say you're going to do, you're going to be you and not be some robot voice that's just trying to pry your wallet open, right? That is your most valuable commodity in your business. And trust is earned through honesty. Trust is earned through your reputation. Trust is earned through living out your values. Trust is earned through again, doing what you said you're going to do, not automation, not how can I do less and try to get more, right? So if your whole point of using tools or your whole goal is to figure out how you can do less with more, you might struggle, right? And especially if you are somebody that follows Small Business Saturdays, if you're somebody that's read or intends to read the Fundamentals of Business Success, this is a whole different understanding. This is an uncommon mindset. The fundamentals are about being fulfilled and goal achieving. It's not about how do I make the most money. It's not about how can I win at all costs, right? None of those things are true in what I believe is important for long-term success, right? I want our success group to be around forever, and I want to love what I get to do each day, right? If it was just about making money, I would have done things a lot differently, and I probably would have failed because it wasn't who I am. Right. And so I want you to ask yourself as you're thinking about, okay, what are some of the tools that I use or could be using that will help me grow? Right. And ask yourself this, am I using these tools to express your voice, or are you using those tools to hide behind them? I want the really polished, what would so-and-so say? Great. If I wanted to buy from so-and-so, I would go buy from so-and-so. But if I'm interested in doing business, exchanging value with you, I want to hear your voice inside of that. So think about it, right? Like let's take a moment and inside of our business, or heck, even inside of our lives, right? That's fine. What's one thing that feels overly automated or impersonal right now, right? And just think about the whole process, right? Where can you bring some more humanity back to it? So just reflect on that for a moment. And any of you guys that are tuned in live right now, Chandler, Kylene, whoever, I'm happy to, interact and hear some thoughts from you. What are you doing with some of these tools, and how can you express your voice, right? So that's kind of the mindset we need to make sure that we keep in front of us. Why is most important? Understanding that these are tools, not solutions, right? The solution is to maintain your voice, build trust, that trust as a currency. All right. So I'm going to keep moving forward unless you guys have some things that, and I know there's a little bit of a delay here, so we'll come back to them if we need, but I do want to get through this so you guys have as much of your Saturday back for yourself as possible here, or whenever you are watching this. If you're somebody who's watching the replay of this, would love it if you would let us know that you're watching the replay by typing in the comments replay, but also share your thoughts, right? The idea here for me is really, I want this to be a conversation. It's a place for our community to talk about how we can balance growth and authenticity. So as we get into the second part of the cycle from the fundamentals of business success, and that's the prepare phase, right? And this is the planning, the getting things ready, right? And I think what we're going to talk about today, in fact, I know what I'm going to talk about today, is aligning tools with your values. And so I really want you guys to be able to assess how to use AI and automation intentionally, right? And I, I don't think that we understand that word enough. I know we say it. I know we maybe give it some lip service, at least for me. I gave intentionality a lot of lip service in the course of my life. But I'm really trying to really understand more deeply what that means and how I can live that out. Right. And so a lot of times intentionality for me just means to slow down a little bit, hold on a second, make sure, you know, don't go like bull in a china shop necessarily. Right. Like we have to find that balance because I can't be too timid. I can't wait for somebody to tell me what to do, but I also need to be intentional. And so as we talk about intentionality when it comes to AI and automation and the growth that can come from that, these systems, these tools should support your values, not replace them. Right. And so I want to get into that as kind of the prepare phase before we get into the pollinate phase, where we start kind of coming up with some action items together here. But I do have some great comments here that I want to share. So Kylene says, social media posts used to take me forever as I tried to be all things to everyone, but AI has helped me to get more clear in my message. I still need to add more of me in them, still growing and learning. I love it. Right. That's where we're all at, Kylene. I love that. Thank you for sharing. Chandler says, social media is for sure easier, but I hear how I need to add myself to it more. There you go. Right. I'm fortunate enough to know, obviously, Kylene's my wife, so I know her very intimately. We are been married for almost 15 years, maybe together for 15 years, married for 14. Sorry, but I do know when our anniversary is, so I got that. I got that going for me. Chandler and I are very close. We're personal friends, and I get to work together with her on the grace period, right? And I don't think there's ever a time where I've gone, man, that's too much Chandler for me, too much Kylene for me. Because when I get true, authentic Chandler and Kylene, I want it to overflow. Kylene, positivity, Chandler, humor, the care, the heart, right? Like these are things that I can't get enough of. And if I am full of those things, what's going to happen is they're going to overflow out of me. And then, somebody else is going to get some Kylene through me. Somebody else is get some Chandler through me. Right. And so it's really important for us to understand that these tools are tools. We need to align them. And so let's start here. AI, so ChatGPT, if you're somebody, probably that's what most people have heard of. Maybe you're using like a Google Gemini or a Copilot. There's more AI around you than you realize. Probably if you've interacted with a chatbot of some sort, if that's all AI driven now. Every tool, like when I write an email in Gmail, I could use AI to do it, all that stuff. So AI is everywhere, but we can't let it take over. We can't let it do our thing and become us. So my suggestion as we kind of think about this is every time you are interacting with AI, remember, it's just a tool. It's an amplifier. It's not a mask, right? And so what that means is I want to use it as a draft. I want to use it as an idea generator, but I very rarely, if ever, In fact, no, I would say not ever that was successful, at least. Have I just said, I want this, very basic, spits out this information. And I've used ChatGPT a ton. Like I live in it almost every day. And so it knows a lot about me, right? Maybe even scarily enough about me. And so it can really write like me in a lot of ways. But there's still nuances to who I am, right? And it's still a computer and it doesn't understand what's important in values and stuff like that. So I, I'm always taking it and saying, okay, great, there's a good starting point, but I'm going to add myself to it. The story, the idea that just comes to my head as I'm thinking about it, those types of things. And so it should never be your final draft, in my opinion. All right. So start there. And part of that means we can't just go write a blog post about this, copy and paste. Right. Maybe you can start there, write a blog post about this, and then what I normally do is say, I need your help writing a blog post about X. Here's a little bit more detail from my perspective. Can you create an outline of what you believe would be a good flow for this blog post? And then ask me any questions that you need to ask me so that I can give you more details and make this more of my own voice. And up pops an outline. I can go, yeah, it's great, but maybe I want to do this here, or no, I don't really want to add that section. And then it's got all the questions, what would be a personal story that relates to this, or what, and now I've interacted with it a little bit. And then I can take that next draft or a couple more revisions down the road, pull that out, put it into the blog, and then I read through it and I change it. And I, find that there are words that I would never use, right? Because I can't even pronounce them half the time, some of them, right? Right. And so how would I want it to sound like I'm actually speaking that. And so that's first, right? It's an amplifier, not a mask. Secondly, and I've started already talking about this a little bit, but we really need to infuse ourselves, our humanity into it. And so that comes from, all of these AIs, all of these systems are basically being trained and they're getting smarter the more we interact with them. Like I said, I've used my chat GPT quite a lot. And so it does really understand me and know my voice and what's important to me and my values and all that other stuff, right? I fed it a ton of data. I probably trained it way more, which is great for chat GPT because now they have that available out there. I don't, some people are like, oh man, that's really scary. And I'm like, I don't know, right? Like they're going to get it one way or another. Maybe I'm naive, but the reality is we need to put ourselves into it. Right now, I can go in and I can delete all my content, all my data at some point. Right. And that's fine. But the reality is the more you interact with it, the better off you're going to be, the more it's going to sound like you. Right. And then third is lead with transparency. Right. And this can mean several things when it comes to thinking about aligning these tools with your values. Just the fact that you're using it, right? Like at first we need to be transparent there, not potentially, but like be transparent there. I'm very transparent about the fact that I got a lot of help from ChatGPT on the book, right? Like it gave me a lot of flow, a lot of outline. It helped clean up thoughts, right? But if you also went and looked at the chat that I had with writing the book, like back when I was using it, the chat GPT wasn't as powerful. So it would like stop, it would break all the time. Right. And I have to transfer things. And like, there was so much of me in there that it was a little bit too much for their system at the time. Right. So that's the first part about transparency, but also, again, like I said, I want to make sure that I go back and I put my own lessons, right? Being transparent about the struggles that I've had into these bits of content or ways that I'm sharing. And the other thing that AI and automation can't do is those kind of moments of just behind the scenes of oh yeah, here's right. Like at this point today, it can't do this. Right. I'm sitting here as Chandler said earlier, yay, we're live, right? It can't do this and have this interaction. Now, if you guys are commenting in there, right, like we could definitely do some things to feed some different stuff in there. But the reality is the human touch is what's going to be your value, your deep value, right? The AI gives us a framework, and then adding you in the middle of it brings it to life. And then finally, going back to our why and our values, right? Like, before you use anything, before you add anything to your system, right? Before you're, I mean, even like calendars or, this or that or the other thing, does this help me serve people better? Not faster, not just faster, but does this help me serve people better? Does this help me connect better with my ideal customers? Not just faster, right? Because by its nature, a tool should be faster. That's like the minimum barrier of entry, I would say. Right. But better is the most important part here. Okay. So AI is a mask, not as a mask. It's just an amplifier. Infuse yourself into the systems, lead with transparency, share yourself in it, in everything that you're pulling out of AI and in automation, and align your growth, your values with that growth, right? Is it better, not just faster? And let me give you a quick practical step here. It's kind of like an authenticity filter, and you can use this for your business or yourself, but obviously for Small Business Saturdays, here's how you could use it for your business. Say at the end of everything you put into AI, give it this prompt. Everything we create should sound like your name, your brand, etc. And hopefully at this point you've already fed it all of that, and reflect our values, and then list those values with the description so that we build trust, right? So here's how it might look for me, for example. Everything we create should sound like myself, Aaron Montgomery, who our brand is about helping business owners fall in love with what they get to do. Make sure that you reflect our values of being solution oriented and making a significant impact in their fulfillment and goal achieving while building trust. Right. So I put that at the end of everything that I've asked. Was, let's say I'm doing a social media post, a blog post, an email, or whatever. I put that at the end and see how that changes things for the output that you get. All right. So there's a kind of, and as we kind of share that practical step, that leads us perfectly into the final cycle here, pollinate, which is the action, right? Then how do we grow and really make sure that, the action here is just integrity, because authenticity is going to be that like gasoline that fuels your connection, your growth, that connection with a deeper community. And so we need to make sure that we kind of are looking at this with some real world applications. So I want to lay out for you guys about 4 quick action steps, right? And so here's number 1. Just anything that you've got automated currently, audit it, right? And so maybe that is some scheduled posts you have out there, right? I think when the story that I remember kind of that would speak to this is, and I don't remember the exact details of it, so forgive me for that. But when scheduling of posts first got to be a thing, right? I think like when Hootsuite was first out a long time ago. So some of you younger folks might not even remember this, but when scheduling of social media got to be a popular thing, some of these companies were scheduling all sorts of stuff. And I think it was around it wasn't Columbine, but the one on the East Coast, one of the school shootings. And this company had social media posts scheduled, and they didn't go back and change them. They let them go. And one of the things that they had scheduled based on what had just happened in that school situation was really tone deaf, right? Now, maybe it shouldn't have been posted to begin with, but it definitely should not have been posted after that. And so think about that for your own business. What do you have scheduled out there that you might think is relevant now, but might miss the mark once it goes live, right? Maybe you do a regular email that you're doing stuff, right? You've got chat replies in your Facebook message that you haven't updated in a while. right? And so really, I think the audit here is just to go look at all those things. Think about ways that you've already implemented any automation, and just double check. Does it feel like you, or is it a little bit too robotic? Right? Like, for example, I've got a template that I use for some of the requests from American Print and Supply, right? And at first, I just was kind of using it. Things were going hot and heavy, and I just needed something. And the more I would copy and paste, the more I would like put in there, and then I would, because I still read it and try to make sure that I'm adding something specific about the person I'm responding to. The more I started using it, the more I realized, man, that's not right, right? It doesn't sound like me. It doesn't have the human touch that I really want it to have. And so it's been through a couple of revisions since then. I've audited it. I've made it better, right? So that's the first one. Second one is really just make sure that there's an opportunity in all of these automated touch points to also add a human moment, right? So I do like to use a lot of templates. I just make a Google Doc that is templates, and I can go in and kind of copy and paste. I also use that for some of the prompts that I use regularly, or bits and pieces of those prompts. But all of my templates, I've also got several templates set up in my Gmail. For example, when we post a new Two Regular Guys episode, I have a series of emails that goes out to the guests to share that, hey, your episode is live. Here's how you can share it. We appreciate it. And then I got a follow up a week later that says, hey, just again, really thank you for your time. The more people we get to listen to this episode, the more, I can't remember exactly how I say it, but basically the more expertise that you are able to show and get more eyeballs on what you said. And so we'd appreciate you sharing it. And then a couple of weeks later, I've got another automated message that goes out and says, hey, again, really appreciate you being on. Could you do me a couple of favors? Would you record your voice for a new intro in the future? B, can you give us some ideas for future guests? And C, if you want to come back on the show at another point in time and you got a good topic for us, go here, kind of thing, right? And so I've got those things all automated and scheduled, but every single one of those emails don't just automatically go out. They show up in the draft folder of my email box once the automation tool has done its thing. I use Zapier and some other, and a spreadsheet and yada, yada. But it doesn't automatically send. And there are several sections in the email for me to add a personal note, right? Talk about the episode and what I loved about having them on, right? Like one of the things that really stood out to me personally as we were having the conversation. Right? And so adding those personalized touch points is number 2. Number 3, and this, you might go, well, how is this related to what we're talking about? But the reality is, if we don't take action at all, growth on authenticity, AI, none of it matters. And so number 3 is just do something, share a story this week. And when I say share a story, make sure that it's you. Use a tool, try something out, try something new, but make sure that that story shows your journey, shows your evolution. You say, hey, I'm trying out AI, and not just your successes, but share a story this week. All right. So that's my encouragement for you. And then the 4th step here in the pollinate phase is make sure that you're inviting feedback. You're going to get some things wrong. Your things might not resonate, right? And yes, a lot of times what we get as feedback is the crickets, right? That is feedback. But maybe it's because you're not asking for feedback, right? So if all of your posts are just look at me, look at me, look at me, I wonder why you're getting crickets. But if it's about getting to know your audience better, what do you enjoy most about X? What are your thoughts on this? Here's a project that we're working on. Love your feedback on it, right? And here's where it gets to be, at this point, the AI stuff, maybe it can help us kind of bring some information together if you're getting a lot of feedback or something like that. But really, this is where the human touch really has to happen, because I can create content, I can post, I can share, but none of that does us any good if we don't get back in there and get the connection going, right? I make it a point to try, and I know sometimes I don't do it as quickly as I'd like, and right, I'm a work in progress in this too. But I've tried to make it a really deep point to go in and reply to every comment, not just like it. There's a few where it's just like, okay, I don't really know where to go with that, so I do just give it the heart or the like or whatever. And so I'm not going to say I never do that, but the reality is my goal is to actually reply with something more than a couple of words. Like, oh, that's great, right? Like, no, oh, that's so awesome. I appreciate you sharing that information with us. Tell me more. Right? Anytime I can ask somebody to tell me more, that deepens our connection. I learn a little bit more about them. They learn a little bit more about me, right? And that deepens our connection. So um, make sure that you get in there and listen deeply to the feedback, right? Like we have to accept it. If we don't, it's not going to do us any good. So you might as well go la 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 la. But B, you're not going to get any more. And the information you need to grow and get better is probably being shared with you, or could be being shared with you, if you didn't argue every time somebody gave you feedback. All right. So here's the thing that's the uncommon mindset. The most powerful tool in your marketing tool belt is not AI. Right? It is a wonderful tool. It helps us do more, but the most powerful tool is actually empathy. Right? And so we can use AI to amplify your heart, but not replace it. Right? And so good. I'm glad. So Chandler says, challenge accepted. And then jokingly, how I feel about feedback, right? And then Kylene says, I love that. Tell me more. Right. And I think that's really important. We don't always stop long enough to think about that, but why not? Right. Social media is about being social. And we use it as a sales and marketing tool, not as a social tool, right? I think sales and marketing are a byproduct of it, right? I can become aware of what you do, but if I can't trust you, I don't think I'm going to do business with you, right? So let's see what other. Okay, Kylene gave us just going to run down. I'll run it down here too. So number one step, audit your automation. You just go check it out, make sure that you're in it still, that you haven't removed yourself from any of those responses. Number two, personalize your touch points, right? Give yourself that space to, because I can send out a lot of emails, and I can, crank that stuff out. And if all I have to do is type in one sentence about something personal that only I could know, then I can send a mass email without it feeling like a mass email. And that's going to actually get me a lot further than just saying, okay, here's 400 emails going out, right? So personalize some touch points in there. Number three, take the action, share a story, action, do something, as Kylene said. And then number four, invite feedback. And listen deeply, right? Again, some of the feedback is not going to, you're not going to actually get the feedback until you get a little bit deeper into it, right? They are trying to share something with you, and yet you're maybe not getting all of it because they're trying to be nice, right? But you maybe need the not so nice to really understand how to get that next step. All right. So there's your 4 action steps that you can potentially utilize this week. Again, my whole goal is to be inspirational, not prescriptive. So this is, you can use it as a 1, 2, 3, and 4, but just figure out how you can add more of you into your tools that you're using there. All right. So AI and automation, yes, they're going to get you there faster. And yes, they might sound a little bit better than you would. Like, there's not going to be a bunch of ums and ahs and likes and all the stuff that, as we're thinking about what we're sharing, right, I just need to slow down. But the reality is AI can take something. My brain will go thought. Oh, stop. Another thought. Well, wait a second. Where'd I go? Right. And I can feed that into AI and say, hey, can you make this flow a little bit better so somebody else understands this? Yes, that's what I was actually trying to say. Right. So it can be faster for sure. It can make us sound a little bit smarter for sure. And honestly, it can be cheaper too, right? We can, we don't need to necessarily pay somebody to do our social media anymore. I think that's always a challenge anyways, but your authenticity can never be duplicated. right? It will always be rare and therefore valuable. So when you start balancing that authenticity with these tools, you're not just growing, you're you're actually building a brand that people can believe in and trust. So if you are, going, okay, I get it, Aaron, I'm ready to grow, but I don't want to lose my voice, right? A big part of this is really understanding what your voice is, what's important to you. And the way that I've developed to find that out, that's worked for me and has worked for many other people, is through strengths, values, and passions. And I think understanding that deeply will allow you to align your growth and your authenticity together. So I'm going to put a little call to action here, you guys. Let's do a free SVP clarity chat, whatever you want to call it, whatever's easiest for you to call it, so that you do it. But if you'll go to osg.link/SVP, you can sign up for that right away. And through the end of 2025, I am doing that for free still, because my goal is to help as many small businesses fall deeper in love with what they get to do. And so I've been developing it and getting better with it. And apparently people don't find enough value in it because it's free. So we're going to change that up. But if you find value in it and you want to do it, just go to OSG. I'm sorry, not OSG, rsuccessgroup.com/SVP. I think actually you need to go to, yeah, that's actually wrong. Gosh, on the fly. See, I make mistakes. So this is real. This is live, right? Here, let's try that differently here. Here, gain clarity and confidence. osg.link/SVP. There was a AI moment. I used AI to help me tweak this. So I'm being transparent here. I don't know if I did or not, but I think you can kind of assume that. So I apologize that I wasn't transparent. And it actually took my link and got it wrong because I didn't check it. Right. So there we're good. There we go. That was planned by divine intervention to show you that how we can, make those challenges turn into something good. Kylene says, I highly encourage you all to take advantage of the SVP. It is so powerful. And then the other thing I want to share with you, thank you, Kylene, by the way, sorry. The other thing I want to share is if you guys are not over there and active, right? Like I know a lot of people that watch SPS might be in the group, but I don't believe that you're active over there, right? I'll just call a spade a spade. There's not a whole lot of active folks over there right now. I know business is busy and yada, yada, yada. You will only get out as much as you put in. If that's the number one thing that I have learned throughout the course of my life, especially over the last 6 years as I've been growing and working on our success group. When I was just a consumer, when I just hung back and hoped that somebody would give me something or I would have some golden nugget that would change my life, I stayed in the exact same spot. But when I felt like leaning out and I instead leaned in and got involved in the conversation and asked questions, even if I look silly or whatever the fear was holding me back, right? That's when things have evolved and changed and grown for me. So if you'll go to osg.link/group, that is the Entrepreneur Success Hub Facebook group, and we can keep the conversation going. I will have a couple of posts in there that I will schedule throughout the week to keep the conversation going about balancing growth and authenticity. So I hope to see you participating in that conversation. So let me see. I get back to the comments here. You are human. Yes. Thank you, Kylene. Very human, probably a lot human. Thank you for that. All right, you guys, thank you again for your time here today. I've had a blast sharing this and hearing from you guys as you've listened in. Please share this with somebody else so we can keep the conversation going. The deeper we get, the better off we're all going to be. Next week, I want to talk about designing your customer experience. Now, buyers don't just choose the best product. They choose a partner who's going to match who they are, what they value, and honestly, who they trust, right? Like I can look at all the same products next to each other and I'm going to go for the one that I trust. And that's pretty much how humans operate. So we're going to explore how to build a simple, repeatable experience that takes advantage of the opportunities, maybe even some of the things we talked about here with AI, but that it feels fast, it feels personal, and it feels aligned to your SVPs. Therefore, you're attracting other people that have similar SVPs. So, this could be things like your packaging, how you're, interacting with them before you make the sale, kind of that proofing stage for some of our printing folks here, and communication, right? Just the general communication from the point that they understand who you are to when they're interacting with you and doing business with you, the follow up after the fact, all of that stuff, right? That's what keeps customers coming back and telling other people. And so it's part of that overall customer experience. And we're going to talk about designing that much more intentionally next week. So that is what I have for you guys today. Thank you guys so much for spending some time with me here on your Saturday. And I will look forward to having that conversation with you next week about designing your customer experience. Have a great day.
Dark days, overwhelmed, trapped in a maze. Small business owner, stress had me in a daze. Every problem piled up, couldn't catch a break. Thought I couldn't make it, my dreams were at stake. But then I found a group that changed my whole perspective. Our success group of a community so effective. We all chasing that dream, sharing struggles and fears. They understood my journey, wiped away my tears. Together we broke through, we